What's up, love bugs? Thank you, and welcome to another segment on Sentimentally Speaking. I told you guys that I wanted to start something fresh and new, and I decided to do Confessions from a Profession. And today I have the distinct honor and pleasure of interviewing half of my creator, and that is my father, Bryan Barcelo, aka Pops. Welcome, Pops, to Sentimentally Speaking.
Hey, what's good, Vi? Thank you for allowing me to be on your podcast.
No, the honor is really all mine. I definitely regard you as one of the most brilliant people I know. So the pleasure literally sits with me. So when I reached out to you and I said, hey, I want to have you on my podcast, and you said, I'll be honored. And I told you I wanted to do confessions from the profession. And I said, what do you consider yourself a professional at? And you said multi-potentialite. And I instantly had to Google it because I had never heard what a multipotentialite is, and maybe my guests haven't either. So I'm going to read the definition that I found on good old Google, and it basically says that a multipotentialite is an individual who possesses a diverse range of interests, talents, and skills. They're unlike a specialist who often focuses on a single area or discipline, where multipotentialites, they typically thrive on exploring and mastering multiple pursuits across different domains and areas of interest. And you said you identify as a multi-potentialite. Can you tell us how it was that you came to discovering that you were a multi-potentialite, and when did you realize you had so many interests and talents?
The discovery of multipotentialite had to be from reading science books, history. There's been a lot of great names about history, like Benjamin Franklin, for instance, Leonardo da Vinci. When you read about those guys, you find out that they had varied interests, especially Leonardo. The guy was painter, sculptor, inventor. Ben Franklin, he started a library, politician, diplomat, and he probably has, the experiment with electricity. So yeah, he was in all kinds of things. So just from reading about those guys, I knew that people like that existed. And I'm sure there were women like that also, like Madame Curie. I'm sure she had other interests besides like radiation and all that stuff, So multipotentialites, they existed for a long time and they're well known. And like I said, many of them come on to be great historic figures. Not saying that I will, but I'm just saying that's how I learned about them.
Okay. And so you learned about them. You was like, okay, these people exist. When did you say that me, Bryan Barcelo, is a multi-potentialite?
When someone told me.
Oh, okay. So it wasn't self-discovery.
Yeah, well, just from reading it, I said, well, I do a whole bunch of things too. Now, the thing is, all right, let's go for it. They got things called, another name for multi-potentialite is a Renaissance man. There's also some other names. I'm trying to think what they call them. But a jack of all trade. Yeah. A lot of people know that. And then there's another one I can't think of right now. But basically, there's been different names to describe people who have a whole bunch of different interests. One thing I don't really like to think of myself as a Renaissance man, because the definition seems to imply that these guys are like they master more than one, say, occupation. Like, say, Leonardo, for instance. Not only was he a great sculptor, a great painter, the guy was also a great inventor. The guy came up with the telescope. He invented the helicopter way before anybody even thought of a helicopter. Leonardo had one. So these people, they have all these varied interests. They're actually masterful in those other interests. With me, I have tons of interests, and I do a whole bunch of different things, but I wouldn't say that I'm like a master at any of them. Just being honest. I'm pretty good at a few things, but I wouldn't say a master. And to be a Renaissance man, I think you should really be a master at a few of the things you do, and not merely just adequate, not just good at it.
Okay, that's great. So let me ask you this. How do you decide which interest you are going to pursue and what to maybe set aside temporarily? Because things could be coming in your mind so quick, so fast. How do you really hone in on what's going to be your focus?
Excellent question. Yeah, it's true. I can't speak, of course, for other multipotentialites. But with me, thoughts constantly racing through my mind, ideas, and then they're despair. They're not really connected all the time. I'm thinking about trucks, the moon the next time, shoes another time. And the thing about me is that when I get into things, it's not surface level. I like to go in deep in whatever I do. For instance, when I started learning how to play the guitar, it wasn't enough for me just to simply learn how to play the guitar. I have to know how guitars are made, the different woods and all of that. The materials are made up. Also know how to repair them. So one of my first things I did, the bridge was coming loose on the guitar. People understand what that is. It's a major repair. And actually it costs too much to go to, what they call them, a luthier. That's the guitar repair guys. I think they call luthiers. Anyway, it costs a fortune, way more than a guitar costs to go there and have it repaired. So me being a multi-potentialite, and I love to repair things. I don't really care what it is. I'll try to repair it. And I said, well, let me give it a shot. Things are already broken. So I fixed my guitar successfully. Video online, by the way, everyone. Guys want to check it out. It's on YouTube. So I'm sorry, go ahead.
No,
I just run on and so I just talk.
Okay. So my next question is to you, as a multi-potentialite, do you ever face moments of self-doubt or feeling overwhelmed by these different or variety of things that you engage in? And if so, how do you overcome those challenges? Because if somebody's listening, they're like, wait, I could identify with that. One day I'm doing, candle making. Another day I'm doing, poster boards. Another day I'm designing shoes or Crocs, and they could be all over the place. So I guess for you, and then that can almost make you feel like, well, dang, am I focusing on what I should be focused on? And you start to second question yourself. So if you have moments of self-doubt, I guess, how do you overcome those challenges being a multi-potentialite?
Yeah, first of all, obviously, we're human and we have all of those feelings. Self-doubt is one of them, perhaps even more so with us because we're always wondering, are we wasting our time with this activity? Should we be doing something where we can make a lot of money instead of something that seems frivolous? So we're always facing that. One thing I found that when I start to burn out on a subject, I don't know if this is still in line with your question, but what I do is I just move on to another activity. I give an example. Yeah, I give an example. Like for instance, say I'm mowing the lawn on a very hot day, and I want to come inside and take a break. Well, the thing is, I don't really go inside to take a break. I'll go inside in full clothing. And in a sense, I'm still doing something productive. You see what I'm saying? But in a sense, I'm not doing that same activity. And I found that actually cools the mind off somehow, some way. So if I'm practicing guitar and I'm getting burnt out from learning something new, I'll just slip over to the keyboard and I'll start playing the keyboard and I'm refreshed. And when I get through with that, I might go to editing pictures or editing a video or something, perhaps exercise and learning a bow staff, learn how to spin bow staffs and all that. So I got tons of activities to go back and forth to. And then, doubts creep in sometime. Like sometimes with the guitar, I said, who am I kidding? I just started learning how to play guitar, I don't know, 4 years ago. And from what I understand, like in guitar years, that's like about 4 days. So I'm like, who am I kidding? I said, I'm never going to be great like David Bowie or something, masterful like Hendrix or one of those guys and stuff. But the thing is, that's the enemy when you compare yourself. The enemy to creativity or getting something done. Don't compare yourself to other people. We got our own journeys. So I have to remind myself of that. And then that helps me to continue.
Comparison is the killer of joy. My cousin Mark Lewis said that in a segment we did. So shout out to him. Today's his birthday. Happy birthday, Mark.
Thanks, Mark.
Yeah. So I love that you transitioned to that because my next question was going to be, what are some strategies you may use to help you maintain focus and productivity when you have multiple projects or skills that you are juggling simultaneously? And I love that you said that basically you gave yourself the grace to be like, I can stop this for now and then focus on something else without feeling like you're abandoning your project. And I think that's something important for people to know, because if I'm writing and I just get writer's fatigue and then I decide, you know what, I want to go do a podcast video, that should be okay. Whereas some people may feel like, well, dang, you failed. Why you didn't finish writing? You're supposed to, fight through that. But I love that you take that break. How often do you find that your productivity or your focus is broken when you're working on a project, and how long does it take for you to come back to the original thing?
Okay. Always. And the thing about projects, back burners, we have them for a reason.
Mm.
So, you know, like on the stove, you know, you want to warm something up, you just put them on back burner. It's not like you're done with it. It's just on back burners. Now, the thing is, it can be indefinite. It depends how you have it. Like some projects, I know I'm going to be going right back to it. You know, after I practice guitar a little bit, or do some exercise or whatever, or do some studying, whatever, I'll immediately go back to whatever it was I was working on. Another thing, without getting all they call it woo, you know, woo-woo. A lot of the projects and a lot of things that I do, I actually don't have much control over it. Meaning the inspiration comes from wherever inspiration comes from. And a lot of the projects I do, I don't know that I'm doing them. I'll get up in the morning or I'm going about my day and that voice in my mind say, hey, Bryan, wouldn't it be great if you tried this? I'm like, okay. So then the next thing you know, I'm doing a video, but I'm being a ventriloquist. Actually, that's online too. Never did ventriloquist stuff in my life. And my mind said, hey, try ventriloquism. I said, okay. It actually came out pretty good. To check it out.
I actually love that though, because it almost keeps us fresh, keeps us challenging ourselves, and it keeps the brain moving, because sometimes we could get stale, stagnant, and just very complacent in everyday life. But the fact that you challenge yourself to do something different and new and exciting, I think that's very admirable. I like that.
I appreciate it. You know, I wish I could take credit for it. I guess I gotta give God and my parents credit for that stuff. They made me super inquisitive. Made me not lazy at all. I don't have a lazy bone in my body. If I do, it's one of the little bones in the inner ear, little tiny ones and stuff. But other than that, and then I'm super persistent. You know, I get something in my mind, I like to try to see it through. Now, sometimes you can, for whatever reason. Sometimes you get to a point where and like I said, from wherever these ideas come from, they seem to go there too. It's like, you know, you'll have to be passionate about some one moment, and then the next moment, that passion seems to go away. But what I found with me, it's not entirely. That's what I'm talking about, that indefinite back burner. And so it seems like with my mind, it just puts a whole bunch of things back there and it just ebbs and flows. And then one day, one thing comes to the forefront. And like I said, I never know what that is. But oftentimes, it's one of those things that I put down for a moment. And then it says, hey, time to try this again. I'm like, okay. And then I'll do that.
One thing you said to me is your parents helped you become super inquisitive.
I would say genetics.
Genetics. Okay, so it wasn't a learned thing. It was just naturally in you to be super inquisitive.
I would say genetics, yeah, because it was nothing I did, you know, to make myself curious, just super curious about things. And a lot of things interest me, like stupid things some people would think. I'll give you an example. One day, I lived behind a house in Plaza, and I saw where it had rained, and the rainwater left channels and grooves in the dirt, in the sand, much like rivers. Like, you know, tributaries of rivers and stuff. So I bend down and stuff, and I'm just analyzing it. You know, I'm looking at it, you know, kind of like Jane Goodall studying apes or something. And I'm just sitting there looking at it, and the guy comes by and says, are you okay? And you know, I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. Why? He said, I see you staring at the ground. I'm like, oh man, my mind was miles away. I said, don't this look like rivers to you? And that's when he started taking notes. And he bent down and he looked at it. And he said, it does. So, you know, just things like that. I'll get into that. And then that causes me come back to the house and start researching rivers and silt deposits and how rivers deposit all kinds of silt and rocks and sediment all throughout places and how they empty out into the ocean. And then from there, I just learn all kinds of weird stuff. Never happens to come up in conversations. I know about it. And that's another thing, Vi. You become what people call a know-it-all. It's derogatory when they say it. Oh, you just know everything, don't you? Not really, but I know a lot of crap.
But I think that's important to know a bit about everything, because then you can engage in conversations with anybody about anything.
To certain degrees, yeah. Sometimes I admit I get in over my head. Like, oh, yeah, let me give a plug to my podcast, the Yambar Podcast, a variety of interviews and talks. Anyway, I had a guy on there named a physicist named Bill Gaty. And the guy was talking about physics and stuff, and he's an engineer and physicist. I am not. I read about the stuff. I read about it a lot for many years, but still don't know much about this Bill. And so I was hard pressed to ask like super intelligent, probing questions. But Bill was cool. He didn't like look down on me. He worked with me and stuff. But yeah, sometimes we get in over our heads. Oftentimes we'll get in over our heads on things. But hey, I think it's kind of like the spice of life. It makes for experiences.
Okay, I love it. Speaking of experiences, what's a project or endeavor that you're currently working on now that super excites you, and why?
Well, they all do. All right, I'll tell you. Back to the podcast, because I work on multiple projects simultaneously, so to speak. Bounce back and forth. Right now, as a matter of fact, I was going to share this idea with you. You may want to give it a shot. And as of right now, I don't know if anyone has done it. But remember before I told you, anytime I think of something, I found out there's this society that's dedicated to it. Yeah, website and everything. But anyway, my idea that I'm working with I'll be starting today. I had a conversation with Bar, the chat bot. And I asked it, I said, Bar, are you allowed to do podcast interviews? And it thought, because of the way I asked it, it thought that I was asking them to write questions. I was like, no, Bart. I said, I want to interview you. And Bart was like, yeah, like me, I'd be honored. I'd love to do your podcast. So my next projects will be interviewing AI.
I like it. That's phenomenal.
Yes. And it also suggested questions.
So AI is going to give you the questions to ask it so it can answer the questions it just gave you for itself.
Yes, which is fine. But people get exposed to AI. Plus, it works out for me. I get podcast guests, a great podcast guest. And people are still getting familiar with AI. So I think it'd be an excellent way for people to do it. And I highly recommend it for your listeners and viewers. Perhaps you'd like to give it a shot.
Excellent. I love that suggestion. I mean, it sounds like that's where the future is headed. So they might as well become acclimated and comfortable now.
Yeah, I'm trying to find a way to work with them because otherwise I feel obsolete.
Yes, that's very true. And I think that's a fear of a lot of humans, right? We go to stores and everything is self-checkout. You try to call automated. The operator want to walk you through what your needs are and ask you what you need. And for those of us who still love human interaction, it's disheartening. But that's the way of the future. And it's either we got to work with it and adapt to it or get left behind.
Yeah. What's it like to say in the hood? Get in where you fit in.
Get in where you fit in.
Yeah, that's another one. And then another thing people the word I'm looking for is acquiesce. Acquiescence is not giving up. It's being realistic about the situation. And there's going to be things that AI can do for us a lot better than we can do for ourselves, much quicker, perhaps more professional. And I wouldn't be afraid of that. I would utilize it. I see it just as a tool. For instance, take a digital camera. There was a lot of people getting on a digital camera talking about that's not photography. They said you have to have film. That's real photography. But nobody hardly uses film anymore. Everybody went to digital. And the same thing with the car, the horse and buggy and all of that. Some people didn't want to use it because they felt some kind of way about it. But no, we have to embrace the technology and use it. It's just a tool. I mean, it's still you, still your ideas, and it can give you suggestions. Matter of fact, think of it as a team member.
I love it.
Cast, the crew. And that's the way I look at it now.
Yes. I like that, changing our perspective on things, right? So I like it. So what advice would you give someone who's struggling to balance multiple passions, right, or interests, and they now have discovered that they too are a multi-potentialite based on what they've heard during this discussion between you and I?
Welcome to the club.
Right. I like that. What advice can you give them who may not quite know how to handle that?
Do you? It's natural. If it's natural to have many interests, just go with that. Don't fight it. What was that word I used? Acquiesce to it. Not like I said, it's not like you're giving up. You're just being realistic. This is a situation. This is the way it is. I'm a person that likes to do a whole bunch of different things. And sometimes I'm more passionate about it today, and sometimes I'm not so passionate. Don't worry about it. You can always go back to them or not at all. Totally up to you. It's your world.
Okay, so right, your world. So in your world, have you noticed um any common threads or themes that run through your various passions or pursuits, even if they may seem unrelated at the surface? Where you're like, I
Um,
really see how these connect, but as you're digging into them, you're like, wow, I was working on this thing and I noticed that that mirrors something else I was working on. Have you experienced that as a multi-potentialite?
yes, and not once again, not to get all woo-woo and metaphysical, but
Mm.
I believe that everything is connected. And I'll give you a good example. I took up electronics in school, advanced electronics, and we had to learn about filters, filtering various currents and blah, 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 and frequencies. Anyway, when I got into music production, we had to learn about filters and blocking frequencies and stuff. You got bandpass filters in electronics. You got bandpass filters in audio production. So those were similarities right there. And then there's other things that you'll find the connections in. I can't think of an example right now, but being a multi-potentialite is super great for creativity because you can take these apparently disparate things, separate things rather, and connect them. You can make connections like crazy and stuff. I'm telling you, almost like MacGyver. I don't know if you recall MacGyver.
Vaguely, I know of the name, but I don't really know.
MacGyver was cool. He was like this guy. He's a chemist, and he would solve crimes and get out of sticky situations just by using chemistry. For instance, he made a torch out of a bicycle because it's made out of magnesium, and so some kind of way he took that and made a torch out of a bicycle. And he would just take all kinds of weird things. But the reason why he can do this because of all the different knowledge. He had mechanical knowledge, he had engineering knowledge, he had chemistry knowledge, and he was able to put all those seemingly different things together and just create wonderful stuff. And every time he would do something amazing, the guy who watches him, almost like Watson is the Holmes, the guy would say, MacGyver. Just in amazement, just MacGyver, kind of like Watson talking about, how did you do that, Watson? He go, elementary, my dude, like that and stuff. Yeah, so MacGyver, he's cool. And the reason, and a matter of fact, speaking of Sherlock Holmes, the reason he's so good as a detective is that he could take a whole bunch of separate things and put them together and come to conclusions. So multi-potentialites are great for that. Excellent for creating new things.
You just made me think of a previous conversation we had when we were discussing your topic and hearing multi-potentialite, and you actually started this conversation out by bringing jack of all trades. We all hear that term, jack of all trades, master of none. And then we started talking about a generalist versus a specialist, right? And how if people were, stuck on an island, or if you had to bring different professions in, would you want to bring people who were really great at one thing or people who knew a lot about multiple things? And you had a great story about that. Do you remember what it was that you can share?
Yes, actually, a couple of them. They came from science fiction novels that I read as a kid. Now, whether or not this influenced me, or to the extent that I'm sure it did influence me, to the extent I can't really say for certain. But excuse me. One of the stories was about a science fiction story is about a planet where the people, when they came of age, they were given certain occupations that they would have to do. And I guess these occupations given to them based on some tests that they was going throughout their lives. Anyway, it's a big day, kind of like a graduation thing, where everybody gathered in some great hall somewhere, and then you had to go up there and accept where you were. Anyway, this group of friends, they went together, of course, and they were all excited and just curious about what they were going to be. One person, a lady, I think she found out she was destined to be a lawyer. Another one destined to be a doctor. And then there's one guy in particular, one the story's about, he wasn't picked for anything. Embarrassed, he ran away. Now, of course, his friends and family were looking for him. School was looking for him, but also the authorities were looking for this guy because it turned out that he was the most special of them all. The reason why he didn't get given an occupation was the guy was the type of person to create. His whole job was just to create the new things. He wasn't supposed to learn any one thing in particular. And so in a sense, he was going to be your generalist in a sense, learning a little bit about this, a little bit about that, and putting that together and creating new ideas. And then the other one I can't think of right now, but yeah, you're right. There's another example. Oh, Star Trek. How could I forget? The people on the Enterprise, they're generalists. Like you do have your specialists, like Scotty. That's the ship's engineer. And when it comes to the ship and how to fix it, no one knows more than Scotty. Matter of fact, I don't think anybody in Starfleet knows more than Scotty. He's pretty good at what he does. Almost use slang term. He's pretty good at what he does. And but the thing about, in order to be in Starfleet, in order to be on that starship, you have to know how to do a little bit of everything. You may not be a specialist at it, but you're very, very familiar with it. And in a pinch, in a bind, if something happened to Scotty, I mean, God forbid, something happened to Scotty, your engineer, your lone doctor, your lone scientist, or whatever, you need somebody who can do something in a pinch. And this is where multi-potentialites come in handy. Myself, I'm like good in a wide variety of situations. And it just comes from being a multi-potentialist. I know how to do a little bit of this. I know how to do a little bit of that. And so no matter what situation come up, I'm familiar with it to some extent. And more times than not, I can get you by until the real people show up.
Right, because people would naturally probably be like, okay, if I'm stranded on the island, I need a doctor, I need a lawyer, or I need a fisherman or something. When you could just be like, hey, I know that one guy that's really good at CPR and first aid. He knows how to make a campfire. He catches fish with a net. Like, just
exactly.
yeah.
Exactly.
Love it.
And another great thing about multi-potentialites, I encourage everyone out there with your specific field of study, whatever it may be in, hook up with a multi-potentialite because they see things you would not believe. I would just let them look over his shoulder and stuff, and they'll entertain their questions. They'll give you fresh approaches to things. They'll think of things you probably never even considered before.
Love it. My last question to you, Pops, right? I always like to leave the people with something. And my question is, what's the most important lesson you've learned on your journey as a multi-potentialite that you'd like others to take away from your experience?
You never know what's going to stick. In a sense, we try anything, we try this and we try that. You don't know what's going to work, and you never really know where it's going to take you. This adventure with doing podcasts and music, all of that, never in my wildest imagination that I think I'd be a photographer, that I'd learn how to play instruments, that I'd be performing live on stage, that I would have a podcast. All of that came from having a karaoke machine and just trying to sing a song on it. Then a guy coming by saying, hey, you rap? I'm like, no. He said, I do. He said, come by tomorrow and we'll do some songs. So that night I wrote some songs. From there, it started leading into music production. Then people say, hey, you need pictures. So I started taking pictures. And then he started interviewing people. So, and it just leads to this, to that, to that, to that. So you never know where your journeys will take you. Just because you're doing this don't mean you always have to do that. You may wind up doing something entirely different that might not even be related to what you're doing presently.
Now, did you say all the things that you do were your favorite?
I'll be lying if I said yeah, but I like them all in a certain way. Like, for instance, guitar playing hurts. It's very frustrating. Bad on the fingers, so to speak. You get 10-9, so, and then your fingers sometimes they bleed, you get blisters. And it's very, very frustrating. But I like it. I like that frustration. And part of the reason why I enjoy that frustration, because I expect it to be rough, I expect it to be hard, and I expect it to be tough. And that's the mindset that I have with everything I get into. I don't expect anything to be easy. Everything I do, I expect it to be difficult. I expect it to be grueling. And if it isn't, cool. If it is, cool.
Yeah. And I think that's part of the issue with our microwave society, where we want everything just be easy and quick. And you're actually from an era where hard work is valued. Perfection takes time. And even if we never get to perfection, just even taking the time to learn something and honing in on that skill, And I just think a lot is lost in today's society because we don't give ourselves the time to process, to perfect, to hone in, to discover. It's like I want it immediately. I come up with ideas all the time. And I might share them with people to see, throw the spaghetti on the wall, see if it sticks, what they think
Right.
about it, get their reaction. But I don't always implement it right away. A lot of times I'm ruminating on it. I'm just sitting back and I'm thinking and I'm mentally exploring what this path may look like. And people like, hey, what about that idea you mentioned to me? Or what about that new project? And it was like, it's a thought. I'm watering. It's a seed. It's not ready to blossom yet because I feel like in time, and we know what that time is. And
Mhm.
I think it's important for people to be okay with things taking their time. Do you agree or
Yeah.
disagree with that statement?
Yeah, all its own time. It's something about yeah, and everything in its own time. The other thing too, you want to think keep procrastination in mind. Sometimes that can rear its ugly head. And what I tell people, like when you have projects that you may do them anyway. Like say for instance, if you're writing a song or you writing a book, a story, whatever, even if you write one word, 2 words, just do that.
Mm,
It doesn't have to be anything. And another thing, runs me into those, what's those things? New Year's resolutions.
yeah.
Those things, I can't stand them. Because what happens is stuff, right? I got a video about it too, it's online, New Year's resolutions. All you have to do is be resolute today. Like for instance, what I did in the video, right? I was doing jumping jacks, right? I said, oh wow, January 1st is coming real soon. And you know what my New Year's resolution is? I said, I'm gonna start exercising. And I said, you know what else I'm gonna do? I pick up a pad. I'm gonna start writing a book. It's gonna go something like this. It was a cold and rainy day, right? And then I said, yeah, this is gonna, I said, wait a minute. I don't have to wait till the first. I can do this stuff right now. It's just exercising. I already started my book. So basically, and stuff, you can get all these things going, you get all the things started, regardless of how you feel. Just do them. Don't expect it to be the best. Don't expect it to be the greatest. Just know that your work in the beginning is gonna suck. Right? Just being straight up with you. More than likely, your work from the beginning is gonna suck. You're gonna be horrible at whatever you try. Just know that, accept that, the acquiescence, right? Acquiescence to that, and just move on with it. Just do it anyway.
Love it. New day resolution. Why wait for another year? Every day is a new day to
Yeah,
start
just be
something new.
resolute right now.
Resolute. I love it. But what a way to end this segment. Thank you so much for joining me on my platform. I appreciate you. I admire you. I look up to you. I respect you. I think you're a phenomenal person, like I said, with a brilliant mind, and you teach me a lot. So thank you for, being my educator and my sounding board and a great support. I'm very, very pleased to be a product of you.
You're most welcome. And all of those great things you said right back at you. And I'm very proud of you and all that you do.
Thank
And
you.
I say continued success and congratulations on your podcast and all the stuff that you do. And
Thank you.
thank you everybody for gracing me. Allow me to come into your homes or wherever you're at in your car, wherever you guys listen and consume your
At
podcast.
work, getting money, enjoying us.
Yeah, thank you for letting me join you guys.
Like I always say, y'all can be anywhere in the world, but y'all chose to be here with us. Peace, love, and light. Take it easy.
Peace, everybody.